Okay, are you ready
Yes.
for the first
Yeah.
line of The Lottery by Shirley Jackson?
Let's do it.
The morning of June 27th was clear and sunny, with the fresh warmth of a full summer day. The flowers were blossoming profusely, and the grass was richly green. There's no tone setter, but everyone knows it's a horror book
Yeah.
because it gets scary.
Mm-hmm. Hey, how you doing, listeners? This is Gina Versa on this episode of the Waffle Press Movie Podcast, and today we're going to talk we're going to talk the movie Immaculate, which had came out the other week, but introducing a really cool guest. Met her at TIFF. She's a great actress, writer, and then also educator.
Yes, that makes me sound very cool.
Yeah, no, you're really cool. Welcome to the podcast, Erin Mick. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I have coffee with me, so like I'm like,
Me too. Look at us go.
I know, cheers.
The
But yeah,
nectar of the gods.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't like function without it, but I have it right now, so.
No, I mean, little known fact, the film industry actually runs on coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Coffee and dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, Erin, can you tell us a little about yourself? We just kind of like we were at TIFF together and just kind of like just randomly met you when the lights turned off or something at the lighthouse or something. You do-
Oh, 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 I forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, well, I was sitting at the bar in TIFF. They have this the light box has this little bar thing. And
Hmm.
you're right, I totally forgot about the lights out thing. God, what a weird time. What a
Yeah.
weird time to be alive.
Hmm.
But yeah, I met you and your friend. It was such a, we just had like a good chat. We chatted movies, chatted industry. You were like, "Oh, are you working on a film here?" And I was like, "No, I'm an interloper."
Oh.
I'm just here with the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work at the University of Toronto. I'm a PhD candidate there,
Hmm.
studying, as it happens, studying horror movies. Uh, so I guess I belong here in this conversation.
Of course.
And that's how I'm accredited to go to festivals occasionally if I feel like I should. But yeah, I usually joke that I'm a failing actor and a slightly less failing writer,
Okay.
which I don't know, maybe I'll turn that into a self-fulfilling prophecy if I'm not careful. But yeah, my background's in acting. Love it. Love acting. Wink wink to anyone listening.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I'm a writer, mostly fiction, but of course screenwriting, of course, whatever else I need to. The occasional op-ed, if it helps pay the bills, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's me. I'm not that cool, but this is a cool podcast, so maybe I'll get some cool points from being on here.
Yeah, definitely. No, only cool people are invited on here. So,
Okay, well then good. I feel validated.
oh, thanks. But yeah, no, yeah, I really, kind of checked out some of your work on YouTube. You did like a Snapchat series, so that was really cool. It was like a
Oh
Snapchat
yeah.
horror. Yeah.
Oh, that was funny. Yeah, I was between degrees and I had some time off, so I went home. I'm from the prairies in Canada,
Oh, okay.
which is a really distinct and strange landscape, actually. I don't know, have you been out there?
Uh,
Alberta.
I haven't. No, the only thing I know about Alberta is like Wolverine lives there in X-Men. That's where he's from.
Yeah, he's from, well, I think there's some debate in the fandom if he's actually from like the Northwest Territories
Oh,
or if he's from Alberta. But
okay.
I don't know. I could be wrong. Any X-Men fans listening, don't like come after me if I'm wrong about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we happily claim him. We happily claim Wolverine.
Okay.
Alberta
Yeah.
is interesting. It's like it's got a huge range of landscapes. That's why it does get used a lot in film and TV. Like Brokeback Mountain was filmed out there. Interstellar was filmed out there.
Oh,
It's a
that's
very
cool.
diverse landscape. But I'm from right by the U.S. border, right above Montana.
Oh, cool.
Um, so it's all prairie and river valleys, and it's very grand. So when I was at home, I was just the creative juices were really flowing. I was also younger and COVID hadn't happened yet, so I was less broken down the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Yeah. And I was like, well, Snapchat stories are really just, at the time, you could only film in 10-second clips. And I was like, well,
Mm-hmm.
that's really just a cut of, you know,
Yeah.
um, so I made these, it sounds so silly now, but at the time it was really fun. I made these like short films, that kind of were experienced in real time on
Mm-hmm.
my Snapchat story. So I would like film them sort of in real time with
Oh.
friends and upload them, and then people would watch them as they unfolded. And they were often spooky. So we called it Snap Horror. And it was a really fun time. They seem so silly now on YouTube, but whatever. I learned a lot doing it, so who cares?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, for like filmmaking or like just making movies in general, like as long as you just do it, like, it's like leads to anything.
Yeah, well, exactly. And especially since it's not as if, okay, let me put it this way. Obviously, I just said a lot of stuff is filmed in Alberta, but
Yeah.
if you're some some girl like me,
Okay.
it's not as if I have access to like the world of Hollywood. Like, I mean, I
Yeah.
can't imagine what it was like growing up in LA, and just having
Yeah.
it all around you.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't even occur to me that film could be a career until I was like, I don't know, 25.
Yeah.
And I'd been picking away at it sort of for fun for like
Mm-hmm.
my whole life, but I didn't know it could be a tenable career until I was well into my 20s. And in Canada, it's complicated. We have our granting system, which is obviously amazing, but it's also, um, it has nuances. And
Okay.
one thing that Canada can work towards addressing is there's not a lot of like upward mobility for filmmakers.
Mm.
It's sort of, there's a lot of money, but the money comes in and then it's sort of like, mm, almost a perpetual, it's like treated almost like a perpetual hobby instead of as a career with sort of upward mobility and progression and bigger projects. So often people end up going to the States and then hanging out with you guys.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, it's yeah, it's like I don't know, it's like it's interesting here. Sorry, there's a clock in the background. No. It's
That's
no
okay.
worry.
I mean, I can't
Oh, okay, you can't hear. Okay, never mind. Never
know.
mind. Yeah, so yeah, no, it's like it's interesting like here because it's like yeah, I mean, I kind of grew up in like LA County, so like it was in LA, but it was like, like 20, 30 miles or so. Grew up in a town called Whittier, something some lore on you. But yeah, it's like oh wait, you probably know it, right? Whittier? Because it's by
No,
Alberta.
I don't think so. I don't know much. I only know like my cousin lives in Orange County.
Oh, okay. It's
I
close to
only know like LA and La Mirada.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty much it.
No, no, it's cool. Yeah, it's close to Orange County, but yeah, yeah, it's interesting because it's like yeah, like film was like around, but it's not like like well, we did have like on our street, they filmed like the Muppets here one time for the
Oh,
2010.
cool.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
it's yeah, no, it's cool, but yeah, no, yeah, and then like at what point like did you see like Toronto kind of as like because that's a lot where the industry is that kind of like similar to like say if like here it's like LA is close but if you live say in like Orange County it's it's like around is that I was just curious yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure that Toronto ever really occurred to me until, truthfully, I lived on the East Coast for most of my 20s. I
Hmm.
moved from the prairies right after high school. Decided I wanted to do naval engineering. I don't know where that
Okay.
came from. I
Yeah.
knew I liked ships and I was okay at math. So I got into this program at this small but excellent research university called Memorial University of Newfoundland.
Hmm.
Went out there, pretty quickly realized, oh God, I do not want to be in engineering school right now.
Yeah.
Dropped out after about a year and a half and stayed at the university but switched into the arts,
Hmm.
which is where I should have been the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, quickly finished a degree in history and philosophy, and
Mm.
then got a master's out there. And so when I moved to Toronto, it was actually kind of just because my master's was in history. At the same time, I was trying to do some kind of career in the arts. I didn't know what it would look like, but I was acting when I could, and I was writing, and kind of this weird like mishmash of things. We were talking about how you're sort of like a multi hyphenate, and you always have all these projects going on,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's I think like that's the universal creative experience. So I
Yeah.
was sort of mashing a life together in the arts, not really knowing. where it was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out that the University of Toronto has a doctorate program in cinema studies and film studies. So I called up the department and I asked, should I bother?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not in film, I'm in history, but I have this background in philosophy and have been working as an actor. And I think at that time I was already in the union. So it kind of
Oh,
made me look
cool.
serious in a way that
Yeah.
I don't know if that was accurate, but it made me look like I knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the person I was speaking with at the time, Dr. Brian Price, brilliant scholar, he said, yeah, apply, just see what happens. So I
Mm-hmm.
applied there and nowhere else, which if you're listening to this and you're thinking of applying for grad school, don't do that. Apply to many places.
Mm-hmm.
But they let me in for some reason, and here I am. So Toronto, to answer your question, I realized that was sort of a roundabout way of answering
Yeah,
it,
no.
but
No, of course.
I knew film existed in Toronto. I knew it was a center of film, but and Vancouver as well. They're sort of we're bi-coastal in that way,
Mm-hmm.
similarly to there's like New York and LA, I guess would
Yeah.
be the
Yeah.
closest comparison in
Uh-huh.
the States. Um, but I don't know if I ever really thought like I'm gonna live in Toronto.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a dream I had. If anything, I wanted to live in New York, but
Mm.
obviously immigrating is complicated.
Yeah.
Uh, so the dream is still alive. But for now, Toronto will have to do. Perhaps Vancouver after that, and
Yeah.
I will visit my family in the States whenever I can.
Yeah,
And
definitely. Yeah.
you, I have to come visit you and see the Batman statue.
Oh yeah, I'd love to show you around LA with we got Batman statues and great theaters and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I've lived here all my life, so you'll get the insider
I'll get the
tour.
full meal deal. Well, I was down there in 2022 for a film and TV trade mission.
Mm,
It was great. Um, got to meet with a couple of cool folks who work in the industry and, some producers, some executives. It was a cool experience. I had a couple of scripts that were kind of, I don't know, in various states of finished or not
yeah,
that I was pitching around. So I got a little bit of the LA experience, but yeah, it's a cool place. It's an odd place.
yeah.
It's so
It's
big and spread out, and I think I
mm-hmm.
was expecting, I don't know, living in a city like Toronto changes your brain chemistry. It's so crowded. And I don't mind it usually. I will say the last years in particular, 2020 to now, maybe the crowded part hasn't been as amazing,
Yeah.
but I typically don't mind crowds. And
Hmm.
I was expecting LA to be so crowded, and then actually, because it's so spread out, despite its huge population, kind of was like, where is everybody?
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
liked
don't
it. It's cool.
yeah, definitely have to go again. Yeah. Let me know.
I
But
will. I will.
cool. Yeah, definitely have some cool LA adventures. Show you all the cool places.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Thanks. But yeah, the I guess just kind of going into it because yeah, you had your doctorate in like horror films.
Yeah.
What's like the first horror movie you remember watching? I'm just curious, just to yeah.
Well, I was thinking about this today and I was like, oh, there are so many different answers I could give to this question. Um, I usually, okay, the version of the story that I usually tell if I'm like, I've done a couple of interviews recently about this. Usually the answer I give is the English language version of The Grudge.
Oh, okay.
The one with Sarah Michelle Gellar in it.
Yeah.
Um, I
Hmm.
love that movie. I watched it when I was, I think, 12 at a sleepover. Big mistake. Traumatized me. However, that's not the first horror movie I watched at all. Like that's the most impactful and the most memorable, I think. Uh, but I do remember begging my mom, begging her, like
Hmm.
begging on my knees in the video store to rent the Blair Witch Project on VHS.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And she did. God bless her.
Hmm.
But we got it home and we popped it in the machine. Anyone under the age of like 25 listening to this is gonna be like, what are you talking about?
Oh, I'm sure they might know. Like,
No, they know. I think
oh,
also
okay.
like the 90s are having a comeback though.
Yeah.
I'm like back in my day,
Yeah.
I'm being a woman.
Hmm.
No, but we popped it in the machine and we watched the first, I think, 15 minutes where they're doing the whole setup, with the talking to the townspeople. Um, and my mom was like, this is boring. We have to turn this off. I can't watch this.
Uh-huh.
And we turned it off, and I was sad, obviously, because there's
Yeah.
so much cultural buzz about it, as I'm sure you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was years later, I was babysitting, and I was watching, I don't know, satellite TV, flipping through the channels, and
Okay.
there was Blair Witch Project, and I missed the first part of it, so I kind of picked up right where my mom and I had left off years before, which
Uh-huh.
felt very appropriate. And I watched the rest of it and loved it. But yeah, I mean, I think I flirted with horror films for most of my childhood, but was too scared. Like, I mean, I do think
Mm-hmm.
your brain chemistry needs to develop a certain amount before you can handle it. It depends on the person.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
What about
cool.
you? You've probably answered this question on the podcast before, but tell the listeners.
The first horror movie I remember watching, I think consciously, like we made the choice to watch it. Like I think at like with me and my cousin, he was like sleeping over. I think it was probably so there's like two I remember Scream. So we watched Scream and it was kind of like I think that kind of like went over our heads.
Yeah, I mean, as it would.
Yeah.
It went over most people's heads when it came out, I think.
Yeah. So that's kind of a slasher, but like I think the first movie that like terrified me, that scared me was and I think it has a lot of horror film elements, but Signs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We watched that at the same sleepover that we watched, like at the same birthday party sleepover where I watched
Hmm.
The Grudge. We watched Signs and
Oh.
Ghost Ship and The Ring and Ginger Snaps and we had a
Every single day.
smorgasbord.
Yeah. But yeah, like when I was like 9 or 10, when the alien just like crosses the frame. Yeah, it was
So
like
good.
so fucking terrifying. I love that. It was like I think yeah, I was like 10, so I'll probably like put the covers over my head or something. Because that was
It
like
still gets me, man.
mm-hmm,
Like it still gets me. Signs, I love that movie. It's also deeply funny. I think something I've come to appreciate about M. Night Shyamalan is like how funny he is. He has an
mm-hmm.
amazing sense of humor in all his movies.
Yeah.
And sometimes it lands, maybe
Hmm.
sometimes it doesn't, but I don't care. I love it. I love
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, on this podcast we are M. Night defenders. So yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
We love it. Okay, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
We are
He's
M. Night
great.
defenders on this
Hmm.
podcast.
I love, Old was great. What was it? Glass, I love. I forgot what was the last. Oh, Cabin in the Woods. That was amazing.
Cabin in the Woods is incredible. I was
Yeah.
just thinking about that movie recently, actually. Because it's one of those movies that we can talk about Immaculate obviously
Oh
right
yeah, yeah,
away, but
yeah. We'll get to it. Yeah.
as we should,
Yeah.
but it just I thought this is relevant for Immaculate, so I'm gonna file it away. But Cabin in the Woods is one of those movies where especially the production design is just jam packed with details.
Hmm.
I have never seen anything like it. That movie is insane for just the sheer amount of information in the background. Like, I mean, I remember there's this one frame where the sort of like, government bad guys are talking about which they're taking bets on which of the monsters is going to be
Yeah.
chosen. And in the background, there's a huge whiteboard full of all the different sort of options available
Hmm.
and all the bets that have been placed. And there, you could probably sit there and read that entire frame for days and not get all the details that are in that one frame. It's just jam packed. Love that
Yeah.
movie.
No, it's good. It's good.
And
And then
Immaculate.
yeah, yeah. No, we'll segue into that in a second. But yeah, just one, just going over I'm very curious, like just because I did want to ask you the like studying horror cinema, like can you talk a little bit about that? Like any like, because you talk about like the human psyche, or I think we probably talked about a little touched on it, just what made us scared as kids, but is there anything you could say to that?
Oh boy. I mean, I'm a film scholar. I don't know if I have much valid to say about the human psyche, but I do think that horror has, and I'm not unique in this, I think horror has a
Sure.
lot to say about society, politics, how we relate to each other. So, sort of like the individual psyche. I don't know. I mean, I think one of the worst things that's happened to media literacy in the last few years
Hmm.
is people reading into authorship too much, whereby like, do you know this movie Fresh? Um, Mimi Cave directed it, I think.
I
It's
don't think
got
so.
Sebastian Stan
Oh,
and um normal people, Daisy, what's her name?
Oh, Daisy Ridley?
No, yeah,
Huh.
Daisy. Daisy Edgar Jones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's got Sebastian Stan, Daisy Edgar Jones, and it's directed by Mimi Cave. And this movie, Fresh, is incredible. You should watch. I think it's on Hulu in the States, and I highly recommend it. It's hilarious. Anyway, when it came out, I remember people were just fiending on Twitter talking about how, oh, whoever wrote this is sick. Whoever wrote this is sick and needs to be hospitalized.
Hmm. Okay.
I want to know who uh I'm looking for the name of the writer, Lauren. I know her name is Lauren something. Anyway, I apologize, Lauren, if you happen to ever listen to this. I can't remember your last name, but
Yeah.
um anyway, it was just insane. I've never seen anything like it. So as for what horror can tell us about the human psyche, I don't know.
Okay.
But I do think it has much to reveal as a historical document
Hmm.
about the times in which it was created. So, and I'm not unique in saying this. People, horror scholars have been saying this since the 70s or earlier. I think it has a lot to say about, our current fears. It has I think horror has a sense of collective consciousness, or it
Hmm.
probably wouldn't work. I don't know that you could scare an audience of people if you didn't have your finger on the pulse of what is scary for people in general, which requires, I think, a general sense, whether artists know they have it or not, of the zeitgeist, so to speak.
Yeah. It's
So
almost.
yeah,
Mhm.
but and then as for how it scares, it's funny with kids, I don't know. Some kids are just fearless and don't care about horror movies, but they really affected me when I was younger, which is probably why I love them so much now, I think, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I find them comforting now in a way. I used to have chronic nightmares, and one of the only things that was comforting was like turning on a horror movie. So I think I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? You're
Hmm.
allowed to talk on this podcast. It's
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I'm just like gathering my thoughts. Yeah, no, I think it's like it plugs into like some like, like deep, obviously like a deep fear, but like our anxiety of like, like anxieties of the day, because it's like I think of like War of the Worlds, even though
Yeah.
that's not like explicitly horror, that's more like a sci-fi film, but that movie is really drawing into like a lot of people's like collective anxiety over like like terrorist attacks or like 9/11, because it's like the imagery they use, and like some of the like the way Steven Spielberg filmed it or whatever. It's really drawing into like some sort of like subconscious thing. So I think it's like it's kind of like designed to like get that thing in the back of your brain that gets scared. It turns it on.
I think so. It scratches something at the back of your head, right? And we always talk about like hair raising horror. I really do think there's something like back here that's just horror, just, you know, I don't know. You're right. There's something ancient in the back of our minds.
Yeah.
And if a filmmaker can tap into it, whether it's with, I don't know, it's all these formal elements, lighting, shadow, color, camera
Yeah.
movement, editing, all this stuff. It's amazing. Movies are magic. They really
Yeah,
are.
I love it. Yeah. No, I love it. And, I just love everything about like filmmaking and movies. It's great. One quick question before we segue into like Immaculate, which is a great horror film.
Love it.
As an actor, can you talk a little bit about kind of just being in, like a horror film? Like how do you do like a horror scream? I've like directed like actors and stuff. I'm just like curious, yeah, just like have it on the record.
Have it on the record.
Yeah.
Uh, First of all, I don't know that I'm an authority on this.
Okay, yeah,
So,
yeah. Just in your
but
opinion.
but I love a good horror scream. I honestly think it just comes from the most guttural part of yourself. Sydney has some good horror screams
Mm-hmm.
in Immaculate. She's
She
like,
does.
I love it. She's like a little up and coming scream queen. I say little as if she isn't practically the same age as me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I don't know, a good scream should be unique. It should probably go on for a few seconds too long. I love a scream that seems like it should stop and then doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
As for what it's like acting in a horror movie. I mean, first of all, I just love movies in general. Like I any day on set, there's this cliche. It's like
Yeah.
bad day on set is better than a good day anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does not count if there's some egregious safety oversight or someone gets injured,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
which would never happen on set. But the sort of just general like busy longish day, I think maybe the 18-hour days can stop eventually, guys. Like, what are we doing? But, a longer day, a 10 or 12-hour day, even if it's hard, it is better than a good day anywhere else.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
And horror is no exception. The only thing that I think I love about horror especially is just how like dirty, physically like dirty
Grimy.
you can get with like the
Yeah.
the slime and the blood and the fake viscera and the soil.
Yeah.
I just love that. I don't know what it there's something sick about actors because I've heard so many of us say this. I
Uh-huh.
just want to be filthy and covered in sticky grime. It's like, why?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it taps into something. It's play, right? I mean, I think it taps into that childlike center where it's like, I mean, because do you remember when you were a little kid and you would be like, let's pretend that we're aliens and we are mining for gold on the moon. Like, and there was
Mm-hmm.
no rules.
Yeah.
You just make some stuff up and go and play in the park and you'd come home with scrapes and cuts, filthy, hungry, sweating, looking like you were in a war. I don't know. I think adulthood is, in some sense, a little bit of a construct, and acting is like a great excuse to just be a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it isn't serious, not that you're not dealing with serious emotions, and not that it isn't art. Because it is. It's an art form, and it's also a business. So of course, there's the professionalism and being on time and the seriousness of all that. But mostly, it's just a bunch of kids playing in the playground, as far as I can tell, and I
Yeah.
love that. And horror is the most playgroundish of them all, I would
Mm-hmm.
say.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it's very like yeah, it's very much like, physical, and then it's just like it really, I can imagine gets you in character if you're like in blood and like crawling in the scenes because like yeah, makes you
Yeah,
there.
and you know what else it is? It's sometimes the people. It's not that there aren't like bad or mean people in horror, obviously. I think like they exist in every sector.
Mm-hmm.
But horror fans and people who want to make horror, I don't know, I find they were often just like teddy bears.
Yeah.
Um, and so a lot of the folks that I worked with on, especially like really small stuff, really, I'm talking not even professional sets. I'm talking like little short films, like 48-hour challenges and stuff like this. Those are the people who you do actually want to be around. They're like just in it because they love it. Some of those people go on to make great movies for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Um, and I've seen it. I've seen friends go on to make like legit stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's what you're doing in your spare time, you're probably going to be good at it if you're doing it professionally as well. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a
Yeah.
guarantee, but it seems to
Mm-hmm.
me that's a logical
Yeah.
through line.
Mm-hmm. Definitely like a lot of passion involved.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How did you? Hey, tell the listeners how you came into horror.
Oh yeah, sure. Like how I got into it, just like,
Yeah.
hmm. Well, it's just like I think when I was in college, like I did this zombie movie. It
Oh,
was
no
called
way. Where did you go to college?
I went to like Cal State Los Angeles. It was just
Oh,
like a regular,
cool.
yeah, just regular like state college and stuff. But yeah, like I've been making movies since like high school, and then like we had like a friend that like owned a videography company, so we used like his equipment for like the
Ah.
productions. Yeah, and we were like probably like 18, 19, just hiring like professional actors and stuff, and like yeah, it was like, and then we're like paying them and stuff, but it's just like we grasped like we were like went to like classes, and like our friend that owned the videography company, he like told us the basics, but it's stuff where I don't know, we're like 19, 20, like we don't know like what we knew like what a call sheet was, but it's like like scheduling and like stuff like that. It was like really learning like on the fly. But yeah, like
That's the way to do it, though.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And we made this like zombie horror film. It's called Dead Memories. It's on YouTube. If you want to watch it, I'll send it to you.
No way.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to send me that. I will
Mm-hmm.
watch that today.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's just like and we had like friend of a friend that could do like special effects. So we like just put this like basically the story was just like this like zombie kills his wife and he's going through the house and he's getting like flashbacks of his like life and everything. And he gets confronted by his young son, and then was he like more human where he could like recognize like that that's someone from his like former life. And then I won't spoil the ending if you want to check it out, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
don't spoil it. I want to know. I'm gonna watch it. You're gonna send me the link.
yeah, I will. Yeah. But yeah, like it was just basically, yeah, just kind of like, I did that and then, went somewhere. It was on like some film festivals and things, and I just really enjoyed the genre. So even though kind of like done like other sort of, like more like science fiction or like like fantasy stuff, like horror is like something I kind of like stick to and excuse me, want to like, stay in because it's just something in my brain that just really like attracts itself to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's totally valid. I mean, it's a really unique genre. I always joke that horror film is like the opposite of toxic positivity.
Yeah.
It presents a world where it's like, hey, sometimes bad stuff happens and it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like because of a monster or a zombie
Hmm.
or a zombie virus that gotcha
Yeah.
in your life, or there are always these sort of bigger forces at work. I should plant my flag. This is part of my dissertation, so I don't, if anybody's listening, don't come after me, because this is a nascent thought. But
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I think that, and I'm not the first person to say it, to be fair, but I think that horror, its like ancestor is something more like tragedy, like Greek tragedy,
Hmm.
where it's this sort of forum in which people can work out um, qualms, whatever that might mean, work out issues and sadnesses and worries through art.
Yeah.
And that has made it both tragedy and horror. It's made them actually controversial. Like I think Plato like very famously was like, theater's for idiots, tragedies for fools. uh and
Hmm.
nowadays you still get that same rhetoric about horror. You really do. You get like it's trash, or people who watch it are sick, or
Yeah.
it's not real art. And it
Yeah.
people in
It's
the
like,
academy who wanted to study it had to fight for a while to
mhm.
legitimize it as a subfield within film studies, actually. So
Oh wow. Okay. That's cool.
anyway,
Yeah.
so you're part
Yeah.
of the weird fun crowd.
Oh yeah, I'm glad to be a
I
part of
get it.
it. Yeah, a good member, members
Yeah,
together.
card
So
carrying member of the horror fandom.
hmm. Yeah. Yeah, horror fandom's great, they have like great tastes and like, make good movies. Speaking of which, um,
Aha,
yeah, good
good
segue.
segue.
Good segue, thank you. I've only been doing this for like a couple of years. Speaking of
It's almost
which,
like you're a professional or something.
yeah, yeah, maybe, yeah. Especially unprofessional is what we go by, but yeah. Speaking of which, great horror film, Immaculate, came out, the
Michael
other week.
Mohan.
Yeah, yeah. Great horror film. What did you think? Because I what did you think? Because I love this. I love the kind of like the creepy vibes of this. It was really like it had such a weird like almost like you're watching it and get like anxiety because it's like something's gonna happen. Yeah.
Oh man, I love this movie. I I don't know that I expected to like it, and that I interrogated this for a little while because I was like, why did I go in expecting not to like this movie? I don't understand. I think it's partially because um the sort of broad category of like Catholic adjacent horror
Hmm.
hasn't often done it for me, whatever that means.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't love The Exorcist. Of course I love The Exorcist. It's not that I don't love, Rosemary's Baby, because obviously I do. I'm not an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh but I don't know, usually sort of takes on exploitation or exorcism movies. I like them and enjoy them, but they're not my thing. Like I sort of tend to lean more towards just the secular supernatural.
Yeah.
Uh but I also think uh there's a chance some of it was like internalized misogyny a little bit going
Hmm.
in, because to be very clear, I adore Sydney Sweeney. I do.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think some of the like bad rhetoric about her that's been going on in the public forum
right.
was seeping into my brain a little. And I was thinking like, I don't know if she fits into this movie. And these weren't conscious thoughts. I wasn't like going in being like, I don't think Sydney Sweeney should play a nun. Obviously, that's ridiculous. But the fact that I was surprised when I liked it, I think is indicative that there was some kind of bias going on in my head when I went in. And I can imagine that it was partially influenced by sort of like, I mean, you've seen this, just people feel like it's okay to just go on the internet and talk ad nauseum about Sydney Sweeney and her body and her voice and her
Yeah,
persona.
yeah.
Like, what is going on? Why are we
Hmm.
picking apart this woman?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's like she's really talented as well. I mean,
Lovely, by
yeah.
all accounts.
Like the performance, really speaks for itself. Yeah, yeah, it sucks. Like, people online are, gonna be, misogynistic, gonna be, like insulting. Yeah.
Internet's gonna internet.
Yeah.
And so I was so pleasantly surprised. I was like holding pom-poms in the theater
Hmm.
when she crushed it. She killed this role. She was so good in it. I think she's a perfect scream queen.
Yeah.
She was also a deeply convincing nun, which I think is such a tongue-in-cheek. I think
Yeah.
it's such a tongue-in-cheek jab at all the bad rhetoric about her that she
Hmm.
was like, "Fine, F you, I'll play a nun then."
Yeah.
And she did, and she killed it. And then it's, I mean, I don't want to spoil it for anyone listening, but there's obviously sacrilege involved, and she really she dug her teeth in and really went for it, her. And I guess, is it true that she produced this film? I think that is
I believe so, because she did like producing, I believe, on Anyone But You. So I would think,
very
yeah,
cool.
yeah, I want to agree with
Well,
you.
she and Michael, dream team, because
Yeah.
Voyeurs was also, you can like or not like Voyeurs and how it turned
Okay.
out, but I think the
Uh-huh.
dream, their previous movie together, but I think the dream of reviving a sort of a floundering genre, the erotic thriller,
Yeah.
is a dream that I too have. Like, I love that genre, and there was
Hmm.
such a beautiful moment for erotic thrillers in the 80s and 90s, and then they sort
Yeah.
of petered out. And
Yeah.
now we're in a very, I mean, we were talking earlier about how there's sort of like bad media literacy surrounding especially challenging genres like horror and challenging media. And I think it's partially because we're in a bit of a neo-puritanical resurgence at the moment, especially in North America.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think like any filmmakers that are like, no, screw that. I'm gonna make an erotic thriller and then a nunsploitation horror movie.
Hmm. That's awesome. Yeah.
Anyone who has that on their plans, I love them. I adore them. I only wish, I dream of working with someone like Michael or Sydney. Like,
Or
what a
yeah, like
dream.
yeah, like for like erotic thriller that, some are really, some really good movies. Like I watched Cronenberg's Crash for the first time. Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's great. Yeah.
Canadian.
Yeah, Canada too. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
proud Canadian. Yeah, I love Cronenberg.
We love him. Yeah,
Hmm.
I saw this tweet that was it was no, it was a letterbox review for
Oh, okay.
Immaculate, and
Yeah.
but tweeted, because as you know, I'm resisting letterbox for
Yeah,
reasons I don't understand.
no, it's like Erin, you need to go on Letterbox for
You
sure.
need to get letterboxed.
Yeah.
I will eventually, and you'll be the first to know. But this one
Nice.
review killed me. It was like, I'm looking for it right now, but I'm not gonna be able to find it. So instead, I'm gonna quote it badly. It was
Yeah.
like, "Movies for sickos are back, baby."
Yeah.
So sort of a tongue-in-cheek, like playing
Hmm.
into this notion that these kinds of movies are for sickos or weirdos.
Yeah.
And
Oh
just
man.
embracing that and being like,
Yeah.
okay, if they're gonna be labeled that way, let's just dig in.
Yeah.
I
Just
love that.
embrace the sicko label for like horror films.
Yeah, why not? I mean, the people who don't understand the genre are gonna use that terminology anyway, so
Hmm.
it's okay to reclaim it. I think as a you know,
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
moniker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I guess this movie would be really like, kind of like a sicko because it's just like there's like some like scenes, and I guess we're gonna get into like full on spoilers where it's like, people get their like fingers cut off, or it's like there's like
Um,
their tongue, like I had to like I was looking, but then I looked away at a certain point because it's like I don't know. I get like
I looked away
Sweeney.
at the end where this is a big spoiler alert. So
Yeah.
if you're listening and you haven't seen it, stop and go see Immaculate in the
Hmm.
theater. But um yeah, the last sort of sequence when she's finally almost escaping the tunnel, and then the priest slash biologist comes up behind her, and
Yeah.
he's all Jasonified, and
Hmm.
he grabs her, and he starts giving her like a on the fly C-section.
Yeah.
Oh, that got me. Like I so rarely get that sort of ugh, but I was in a morning, I went to a morning screening of it, which is an unhinged thing to do, but I did. On
No.
opening day, I was there,
Yeah.
11 in the morning at
Hmm.
the theater. There were like three other sickos in the theater with me, all so quiet and
Yeah.
respectful. Because also theater audiences lately have been weird. We got to talk about theater etiquette, you guys. What is going
Yeah.
on?
I
But
yeah.
this was a perfect audience. But that scene, I physically just collapsed in on myself, and I was like, "Ugh."
Hmm.
um, and then yeah, that ending. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. But to the point about production design, I also we need to talk about this because I guess it was filmed on location in a whole bunch of different locations because there wasn't sort of one hero convent building that they could find. And I guess they had to change a lot of their plans because they were shooting in and around Rome. And so actually at certain times, I guess the Vatican sort of put the kibosh on some of their filming locations.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I
Huh.
guess that whole opening sequence in the airport was supposed to happen at a train station instead to make it even more ambiguous about,
Yeah.
because I wasn't even sure what time frame we were in
Yeah. Yeah.
for most of the movie until we you see a cell phone later, and
Hmm.
it's a chunky sort of 90s cell phone, but it's like a cell phone. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we're like this is modern." And Sydney hadn't she didn't really change her intonation, which is very modern. So I was
Hmm.
like, "This can't be like the 60s," but it's very ambiguous.
Hmm.
And I guess they had even wanted it to be more ambiguous by having that opening interrogation in a train station, but the Vatican was like, "No." So then I think they did manage to find sort of all the interiors, that beautiful open courtyard with the high walkway in the background in the garden. That was one location that I guess was a religious building at some point and they were allowed to use for some reason, which is great. But then everything else was sort of an amalgam. All the interiors, as we know in film, were not one location. It was all this sort of
Yeah.
Frankenstein's monster of different locations.
Great production design
Um,
too.
incredible. I
Yeah,
cannot
it's
believe
awesome.
the production design, the detail in the background, how they managed to make it sort of out of time and out of place. I was talking to somebody recently and they brought up It Follows, David Robert Mitchell,
Oh yeah.
2014, I think that movie came
Yeah.
out. I love that film. And in a similar, obviously it's set in like contemporary Detroit, so it's a completely different movie, but in a
Hmm.
similar way, created an ambiguous
Oh
timeline where you have
yeah.
like
Like
Yara using a device that doesn't exist yet, but everything else is kind of dilapidated post-industrial Detroit.
hmm
And then at the same time, like you don't know what season it is because their clothes change in weird ways. Like in the opening scene, Jay is in the pool, but then later
Yep.
she's wearing an autumn coat. you
Hmm.
know, so
Really
in
creepy.
a similar way, I think Immaculate accomplished something like that.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I need to see it again to decide how it actually managed it. But there is an out of place, out of time feeling to it. Did you
Yeah.
find that?
Yeah, no, I felt that too because it's like it's going through like seasons as well because it's like yeah, she's pregnant with uh the Antichrist, whatever.
But
Demon.
yeah, or just a bad mutated Christ. It's hard to
Yeah.
say, but
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And it's like, time's passing, but it's like, it's like it's Christmas and then it's like, summer and everything. And then yeah, it just yeah, I noticed that too. It added to like, I don't know, just like the weird vibe of that. I loved your thing for It Follows though, because yeah, it's a little similar, yeah.
yeah, it has a similar feeling for me, and I also loved that movie when I first saw it a lot, and I still love it. And it's a centerpiece in my dissertation. I love that movie so much, but
Hmm.
and this one, if it weren't so new, it probably would be as well. I don't know if I have. I should just finish writing. I don't need to be adding more movies, but
Yeah.
This movie also, it also is, mm, I've just said that it's sort of out of place, out of time, but as a cultural object, we were talking earlier about how I think film, especially horror, is very indicative of the society in which it was created, which,
Mm-hmm.
that's there's real debate about that in the academy, but
Yeah.
if we read it that way, obviously the elephant in the room is something like the rolling back of Roe versus Wade. And
Yeah.
then this
Yeah.
movie is very much about bodily autonomy. All
Mm-hmm.
the critics have caught, this is not an unusual thing for me to say. Every
Yeah.
critic who's written about Immaculate so far has talked about this. But you're in the States, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where the sort of center of this conversation is happening. What did you make of it when you were watching the film? It's sort of very obvious political underpinnings.
Yeah, no, yeah, I really appreciated it because, it's like it's talking a lot about, because it's like for like Catholicism, yes, that's just like, the issue, just like abortion. And then yeah, because I'm agnostic or like lapsed, and I don't certainly, follow that or excuse me, believe in that. But yeah, it was very much like talking about like kind of the like almost like this weird like chastity thing that like like a lot of like religion has, or it's just like also too like this this deeply like conservative sort of like feeling that exists in this country, unfortunately. And almost like for like an issue like that where it's like almost like where it's like it's literally like a demon or like a creature that's gonna be like evil, but it's like it's almost like its life is like like more important than like the main characters, and or for the
Yeah.
villains.
Or indeed for this entire convent, this entire convent. For those who haven't seen the movie and for some reason you're still listening and enjoying all
Hmm.
these spoilers, it takes place in like a convalescent home for nuns who are now senile or aged or
Hmm.
even just injured, um, run by then other nuns and overseen by this sort of shady cabal of
Yeah.
pseudo religious priest type figures. And that's a classic setup for like a neo-Catholic horror movie or like an
Yeah.
exploitation type thing.
Yeah.
This is like the Rosemary's Baby of it all.
Hmm.
But it turns it on its head because the head priest, who's sort of the big bad guy, as you come to find out, is a use the word lapsed, but he's like a lapsed scientist who like
Yeah.
went back to Catholicism.
Hmm. Yeah.
uh and a sicko, and was rejected,
Hmm.
we come to find out, by the scientific community, and then has discovered this alleged relic that supposedly has DNA from Christ on it, and they've been using this DNA to try to like resurrect Christ through
Yeah.
like pseudoscience.
Uh-huh. Very like Cronenbergy.
It is, it
Yeah.
is, it is. I wonder,
Hmm.
actually, I wonder if Cronenberg's seen this movie. I
I
wanted to
hope
see
so.
it.
I
Oh,
hope
I
so.
hope he likes it.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, as far as I know, he lives in Toronto. If I ever see him, I'll ask him.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Tell me what he
But
says.
it's like got all these nuanced conversations going on in terms of like anti-intellectualism
Hmm.
on the one hand, where we are deeply suspicious of science right now, especially in the aftermath of something like COVID-19, where there's so much like bad anti-science
Yeah,
rhetoric
misinformation,
online
yeah.
and misinformation and genuine fear. Like, I don't want to paint everyone as if like they're just stupid for being
Yeah,
scared of science. Like,
yeah.
partially a PR problem. Like, I don't think that the sciences in general, or like academia even in general, is
Hmm.
very good at like relating to
Like regular, yeah.
the folks, like everyday folks,
Hmm.
right? So it's partially a PR problem, but it has led to a deeply anti-intellectual moment. And
Yeah.
so in this movie, you kind of get this like weird red, like double red herring, I think. I don't know what you thought of this, but
Hmm.
you meet this priest. He's clearly kind of shady and weird.
Yeah, creepy, yeah.
The actor does a great job of towing that line where he's too charming and too friendly at the beginning. And you learn he used to be a biologist, and you're like, oh, maybe he is the good guy, and maybe this movie is gonna be critical of science. But then later you find out that it's actually just critical of zealotry in any form. Like, I think there's this really interesting way in which it has a conversation about like bad science. Like, I think this could be even a movie that's actually thinking about um sort of like holistic charlatans who like
Hmm.
sell like alternative treatments to cancer patients, and
Hmm.
like the mad science of it all, which is
Yeah,
really
like
just
pseudoscience.
zealotry
Mm-hmm.
in another form, right?
Yeah.
It's just sort of like being overzealous about holistic so-called medicine in quotation
Mm-hmm.
marks,
Yeah.
is maybe not that far removed from being like a religious zealot. And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, what did you think about, because there is a lot of different threads happening in the film. On a surface, it's like kind of a, and I use this word lovingly, it's kind
Yeah.
of a trashy exploitation movie, but
Mm-hmm.
it's having complicated conversations. And I'm not making that up because I'm a scholar. I think it
Yeah.
actually is.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's had like a lot of like, there was a lot of like undertones of like, things like that, like zealotry or like grifters, because it's like there's people that just like exploit like people's like beliefs for their own gains, and they don't even like believe in like the stuff that they're grifting off
Yeah.
of, like someone selling Bibles that is autographed by them, by a certain political figure that won't be named right now. Stuff like that. Yeah, don't want to mention that name.
We don't need a
That
cease and desist
from God,
from
yeah.
a man himself.
He's like, dude, I didn't write this for, to be sold for like $70 online. It's just it's like gonna take him to court. It's gonna be his like 30th trial that month. Sorry, I'm on a roll. Yeah, it's
I love it. Don't be sorry. No, get on a roll.
oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, when you live in this country for so long, it helps to have humor to deal with stuff, because
Yes.
otherwise you go crazy. But
Yeah.
thank you.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like Canada's the bastion of sanity. Like, there's a
Hmm.
lot of bad, far right ideology
Yeah,
spreading up here.
yeah.
I'm from a
Mhm.
province that's like pretty guilty of it, actually.
Yeah.
Alberta is notoriously conservative leaning, and lots of bad, like anti-trans, anti-bodily autonomy
Hmm.
policies trying to come through the pipeline. So, to be honest, like these conversations are global right now.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to me that it's not as if there aren't incredibly thoughtful sort of I use this word only begrudgingly because I think everyone knows what it means, but
Hmm.
I don't like that I'm using it, okay. But there are sort of like eyebrow movies that
Yeah.
think through these issues, and
Hmm.
I want that obviously. Um but I do think thinking them through on a pop culture level, like with a horror movie that's super accessible and super scary and doesn't come across I mean, comes across as the opposite of holier than thou.
Yeah.
you know, having those conversations injected into a movie like that is it's amazing. This is
Yeah.
basically what happened in the 70s
Hmm.
after the studio system started to collapse
Hmm.
in the 50s and 60s, and then finally sort of had its death knell at the start of the 70s. You get all these auteurs springing up and coming out of film school or making independent films,
Yeah.
and then having these incredibly rich conversations in actually kind of gritty, trashy, grindhouse kind of movies. And
Hmm.
like everyone knows, you could talk about, I don't know, someone like Scorsese.
Yeah.
He's a prestige filmmaker who's one of the most famous filmmakers arguably ever, and makes intelligent, thoughtful movies,
Hmm.
obviously.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest, he also just like started making gangster films,
Yeah.
which for a long time were not a that's not a respected genre. We
Mm-mm.
respect it now,
Yeah.
but it was not like, oh, I want to be an artist, and in order to be an artist, I'm going to make gangster movies. Like,
Hmm.
that's not how it worked. And so Scorsese is a friend to the genre.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, he's a
He
genre
loves.
filmmaker.
He loves horror too, because it's like he loved Ari Aster's. Like he loves that guy.
Praise Ari Aster so highly. I saw
Yeah.
that one sort of talk back they did. That must have been, where was that? That must have been the States somewhere. Some
Yeah. It was probably like he lives in New York, Scorsese, so it's probably like somewhere in New York. Yeah.
forum or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's a friend of the genre, and I really think we're having and I don't, maybe I'll be wrong, but I think we're in the midst of a sort of 70s resurgence, like another kind of film renaissance where we'll get this really interesting collision of like trashy low art ideas and high art sort of rhetoric. And again, I use those terms high and low very begrudgingly
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I don't necessarily respect the terminology. I don't have an alternative in English.
No, no. Yeah.
And I think Immaculate is like a perfect, oh, what a perfect example. I just love it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. That really like sums up the movie like really well because it's just yeah, you know, it's like it's about something like it's a horror movie and it's like scary, but like it's about something. And it's like I appreciate, you know, movies that like are about something, like have something to say because it's like, you know, you have all these like weird people where they're just like, I don't want like movies to be political. And it's like art is like all political. Like it has if it's not political, then it's not
Art
like
is
art.
always political.
Yeah.
I would argue that especially that actually art that tries not to be political, art that tries to be apolitical becomes the most political.
Yeah.
Because if you're being apolitical, all you're doing is serving whatever active oppression is happening at that time.
Hmm.
It's the same as being a bystander. Like if you're trying to make apolitical art, I'm sorry, but you're being a bystander while you watch some kid get bullied. Like that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Probably. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think planting a flag and having a point of view, that's what art is for.
Hmm.
Obviously. I totally agree with you.
Oh, thank you.
I do wonder about, okay, I have one and only one bone to pick with this movie. And it's not even with this movie. I think it's just with like the horror genre in general. And it's the issue of the tone setter at the beginning. This sort of setup, the initial setup where you have this one scene of this nun running away from the convent and you see her get like buried alive.
Hmm.
Um, the tone setter is a beloved artifact of horror, but
Hmm.
I do think it can die.
Okay.
I think we can have more horror that just starts in media res
Ah,
and gets going.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the
I know
prologue.
that's an unpopular opinion.
No, no, no. It's like for like the latest Exorcist. I'm not sure if you saw it. The
Not
new
yet.
Okay. Well, it's like fairly good, but it's like there's this whole like prologue that's like kind of like setting everything up, but it's like this prologue's like 10, 15 minutes and I'm like, all right, you need to it's not like bad. I'm like, all right, you need to like get going now because this is like you need to like start the movie, you know?
There's pressure to do it. Like I remember one of these screenplays that I was sort of shopping in LA a couple years ago,
Hmm.
which is now on a shelf
Yeah.
indefinitely, which is okay. That's what they're for. You write them, you move on. Someday maybe they get made. It's a horror movie set where I grew up in the prairies
Oh,
in
cool.
Alberta. And I joke that it's like Garden State, but make it horror. It's
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
take on the homecoming
Okay.
trope.
Yeah.
Um, which has been done before 1,000 times, but you try to everything has, so you try to
Hmm.
just do it differently. But I didn't really have much of a tone setter off the top because the whole thing is that I wanted it to feel more like a folk horror where you're just with this character who doesn't know what's going on, so you don't know what's going on, and then you find out later. And so I didn't have this prologue or this tone setter at the beginning. And one of the main comments I got from a producer that read it was like, "You need a tone setter," and I was like,
Mm.
"But do I? But
Yeah.
do I?"
Yeah.
And
I
and
mhm.
and even if you do, I think there's different ways of doing it. Like It Follows obviously has an incredible tone setter
Mhm.
where you don't just know what's happening. You It's like more ambiguous. I feel like the tone setter in Immaculate told us too much, and I feel like it was a some kind of production note.
Yeah, like could have been like a studio note. Like, I mean, neon's great, but you know, at the end of the day, like, yeah, you know, it's cool to play with like form and like structure, but like, you know, they are, you know, it is art, but it's like also like a product that, you know, they need to
Of course, we live in
make
corporate world.
yeah, I need to make money off of. So yeah, it could have been a studio note. It could have like this is pure speculation, but yeah, in terms of tone setters, because yeah, I've written like them into like my stuff. Like it really depends on like the project, you know, really depends, but it's not mandatory, you know. Yeah.
It's not. If you're listening to this, a tone setter's not mandatory, you guys. It's okay. You
Hmm.
can do in medias res. You can just plop everyone down in the middle of it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess a famous example of this is like The Lottery by Shirley Jackson.
Oh,
Do you love this short story? It's
I I
incredible.
I haven't read it. I haven't read it actually.
It
Gotta
literally just
gotta send that
starts
to
in
me.
this. Let me wait. I have it. Wait,
Oh,
I
okay.
have it. Oh yes, right here. Um,
Oh,
it literally starts just in the middle of everything. I'll read you the first line because I don't know if this is in the public domain or not, but this is from
yeah.
Shirley Jackson, The Lottery, okay?
Okay.
I don't have any rights to this.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to pass it off as my own.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
okay, here we go. It goes like this. The first line of The Lottery is, if I can find it.
Of course.
Find something to talk about while I shuffle.
Oh no, yeah, I'll just yeah, dead air, but yeah, no, I need to read more books. That's what I'm gonna say.
That's your
I need
that's
to
your
I'm trying to like read more this year. It's doing better, but it's like trying to find like the free time to do that. Like
it's hard.
it's very hard. I'll do it like before bed or like when I wake up in the morning, but yeah, it's hard to be an adult.
It is hard to be an adult, and also there are so many different things pulling your attention in every direction. Okay, are you ready
Yes.
for the first
Yeah,
line of The Lottery by Shirley Jackson?
let's do it.
The morning of June 27th was clear and sunny, with the fresh warmth of a full summer day. The flowers were blossoming profusely, and the grass was richly green. There's no tone setter, but everyone knows it's a horror book
Yeah.
because it gets scary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so something like, anyway, Michael Mohan, if for any reason you're ever listening to this, I adore your filmmaking, and this is not a criticism.
No. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's
Because the
just
tone setter was beautifully shot and it was
mm-hmm.
scary as hell.
Yeah.
But the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
movie was also beautifully shot and scary as hell. And I feel like it would have been really interesting if we didn't know that the convent was bad right off the bat.
Yeah.
What if we didn't know that? Huh? What
Mm-hmm.
then?
Yeah. You know, yeah, it's just like, film is subjective too. So it's just like,
Totally. That's
yeah,
what's good about
exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
it. Have I
And
talked too much?
no, you're good. This has been a great conversation. I love, having this discussion with you. But
Hey, can I ask you an unrelated question?
oh, sure.
Can the listeners know? They probably already know. Why is it called the Waffle Press Podcast?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's I feel like we've said this origin before on air, but yeah, just to, if anyone's like listening just for the lore, explaining the lore is I believe that so I co-host this with my friend Diego. It's not on this episode, but someone told him like a pun because it's like, you're doing press and they're like, you should call it like the
Oh,
Waffle Press. And then it was like, oh, we stuck with that name. And it's the Waffle Press Movie Podcast. So it was just
oh
kind
my
of like a
God.
pun, like, like Waffle Press. And yeah, so it's like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we should put that in the description or something. But yeah,
What?
that's
No, leave it a mystery
leave
and
it a
then have the
mystery.
occasional guest ask you, like
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Keep it
That's
mysterious.
hilarious.
Keep it
It's very
mysterious.
mysterious.
hmm
Yeah. My waffles are one of my favorite foods.
Waffles are great. I love
So
waffles.
they're
Uh,
so good.
yeah, I don't say this much, so it's like, well, people listen now. I do love waffles, but like French toast is like this much better. So I
Sacrilege.
know, yeah, yeah,
You're basically Sydney Sweeney smashing a baby right
a
now.
little
You're
bit, yeah. So sacrilege for sure.
um yeah, I love waffles. I love them so much. I do like French toast.
hmm
But waffles have the benefit of their little pockets that hold the butter and the syrup in them.
Mm.
And so you get this little gusher moment of deliciousness.
Yeah, yeah, making me
French toast
very,
doesn't have that.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, making me very hungry right now.
Well, when you sent me the link to your when like
hmm
a couple weeks ago, you sent me the link to the your podcast,
hmm
and I was like, thanks, I'll check it out. And I listened to part of an episode, but the whole time I was just like, waffle press, waffle press, waffle press, waffle press. And then I made waffles because I was craving them
Oh yeah,
after you sent me the link. So I was like,
yeah.
I have to tell Gene that like he made me hungry.
hmm Yeah, no, it's well, yeah, I'm glad I could turn more people onto waffles.
Yeah.
Waffles are
Yes.
good. Yeah.
Any final thoughts on Immaculate?
Hmm. I think everyone should see it. See it in a theater because it's like great to like have that communal experience. And yeah, just winding down here. Yeah, I thought it was like really, yeah, it's like a really solid horror. Like you kind of like what you were saying, Erin, where it's like a genre film, and genre's great, and this type of film isn't seen as much. I mean, I love like superhero movies or like blockbuster films, but yeah, we definitely need more movies like this for sure. Yeah.
Because it kind of has that indie grit, but it's high octane. There are moments where some camp seeps through, but as
Yeah.
it should.
Yeah, camp
As
is
it
great.
should.
Yeah, camp is cool.
Yeah. And Sydney Sweeney. She rocked my world in this movie. More
Yeah.
more Sydney Sweeney and horror. More genre.
hmm Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I hope she makes like 4 or 5 like more horror films like as a producer. Well,
I hope she works until she's 109 years old.
same, yeah. She'll be
She
like,
deserves it.
yeah, definitely. We'll keep watching. But yeah, just with that, guess, kind of at the end here. But yeah, I just want to thank you, Erin, for your time. This was a really, really intelligent, cool conversation with you. You're a lovely guest. Be cool to have you
Thank
be.
you.
Yeah, of
Oh,
course.
my
Yeah.
pleasure. I feel so honored.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on the Waffle Press podcast. You should send me a button that I can wear.
Oh yeah, yeah. I could definitely try to like make some or something. Yeah. We used to have shirts, but I'm not sure where the shirts are. So
Oh, the shirts are on the missing list.
yeah, exactly.
See how it is?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just kidding. Well, I have used enough of your time.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I feel like we could talk for like another hour, but yeah, we do have to
We
like,
could.
yeah,
I have to meet a friend. I like promised a friend I would meet them for a late lunch, so
Oh yeah, no, of course, yeah, press for time. But where can people find you at? Just for any like social media or anything you want to promote?
oh yes, the modern age. I'm on Instagram, Erin Ann_Mick. Uh, I don't have that many followers, and I mostly post my mediocre photography, but you're welcome to follow me. I'm on Twitter, but don't bother because I'm never on there.
Yeah.
And when I'm on there, I just get mad.
Uh-huh.
And other than that, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm on YouTube, but I don't post anything anymore.
Oh, okay.
I'm on IMDb. I'm not on Letterboxd yet,
Yeah, yeah. You will be. I'll try
but
to
every
like
day I inch closer.
I'll try to convert you to Letterbox at some point.
Yes, you can waffle press me in to getting Letterboxd.
Mm-hmm. I'll try. I'll try. But yeah, no, great photography too. We'll say that.
Oh, thanks. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I just like it. It's fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, hope listeners please give you a follow because you're talented and you're really great. So yeah.
Oh, shucks, thanks.
Mm-hmm. You're
Oh,
welcome.
thank God for film festivals, or I'd never make any new friends.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, film festivals are the best. Yeah, people should definitely go to those because you meet cool and interesting people like yourself. Um,
Awesome. You're so nice. I'm gonna be walking on a cloud when I leave this
oh,
conversation.
no, you're
I'm so
welcome.
cool and interesting.
Yeah, only cool people on this podcast. Um, but yeah, you could find me on Twitter and Instagram, G9892. The Waffle Press is on Twitter at the Waffle Press, on Instagram at the Waffle Press Podcast. We're on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Like, subscribe. If there's something you like, give it a like. If there's something you don't, subscribe anyway. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We've been professionally unprofessional.
Professionally unprofessional. Bye.
Bye.